everyone. This week, I did not give Alan the actual subject, but I told him where we're going. Did you figure out what I was covering?
Is it ghost tours in Florida?
No, so the ghost tour I sent you to cover for the travel part had my topic within the tour. So, I am covering Robert the Doll. My least favorite thing are haunted dolls.
I never thought you'd do anything doll related.
Yeah, that's why I was spooked the other day when I was doing research. Here's a picture of him.
Creepy.
His face is like smooth and I don't know. It doesn't look like a doll. However, when I get to some notes about the type of doll he is, it doesn't sound like he was supposed to be a doll to play with in the first place or cuddle. And then my sister did tell me, but she told me last minute. I already had my notes. I couldn't find it last minute. Anything we cover, like there might be an episode of another podcast that was able to debunk it, or they found something about debunking it. That's fine. I did not find that information. I understand this might not be real, but it's fun to cover anyways with the things that are out there. But I would like to listen to that episode of what it all was debunked. I mean, there's one very simple story to this and then one very long spooky story to it. So I'm going to go through the spooky part of it, go over the other things, and then wrap it up. So it is said that Robert the Doll is what inspired Child's Play, but there's mixed reviews on that as well because Chucky's name comes from 3 different famous actors' names. I don't have it up. I lost it as soon as I found it because it was one of those things where I wasn't looking for it. So when I found it, I didn't write it down. But that is one thing saying that it is inspired off of. Is that for real or not? Not 100%. And so he is currently located at the East Martello Fort in St. Augustine, Florida, which is in the Key West area. And it dates back to the early 1900s. So a boy named Eugene Robert Otto, so we call him Gene, was given this one-of-a-kind handmade doll by a servant of his parents. Now this is one story. There's another story of how he received it. I'm going through the story of the servant first. The other story is very short. And so they got it by a servant of his parents, and he became very attached to the doll. It did not take long for Gene's new friend to get involved in some strange and scary events. One night, Gene, who's only 10, woke up and saw Robert the doll sitting at the end of his bed staring at him. Not long after, his mom awoke to the scream of help from his son and could hear furniture being thrown around in his room. His door was locked when she got there, and she had to try really hard to get it open, so she was punching it, kicking it. She could not get the door open, but she did eventually, and when she did, Gene was curled up in his bed in fear, and Robert was sitting at the foot of the bed. All Gene could say was, "Robert did it," which becomes a popular phrase later on.
Robert did it?
Robert did it. At this point, bye-bye Robert. I would not have this doll in my house anymore, just so everyone's aware. I would never have a doll in my house. Alan and I are not having children. We have our fur babies. But I always said if we had a kid, this kid would not be allowed dolls or any of the this kid would be isolated because I wouldn't want any talking toys, anything like that. They'd be playing with blocks.
Do you think with the Robert did it part, does Gene start just making excuses, like doing terrible things and blaming Robert?
That was what some people would say, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, why not? But
that's my first thought. Robert did it.
But yeah, so everything around the room was thrown upside down and stuff. It's really creepy. Sometimes furniture would be rearranged or Gene's toys would be destroyed, and all he would say is Robert did it. It's unknown right now. It's unknown why this doll is possessed. There's a couple of theories. And I'll get to that later on. The parents often heard Gene talking to the doll upstairs and would hear a response back, but the response back would be in a different voice. Granted, yeah, anyone can talk in a different voice, but they just made it sound like it was not Gene who was replying in a different voice.
I'm picturing Gene from Bob's Burgers, but you don't know him.
I don't know him. So they've reported witnessing Robert speak and his expressions change. And he is at the museum. Gosh, I hope I put the name of the museum in here. Oh yeah, it's called East Martello Fort. So they even say that his expression will be different sometimes, which is creepy. We'll have to add that on our list of places to visit. Mm-hmm. Side note to everyone, how we say creepy travels and traveling to all these different locations. Eventually, right now, we're not going to these locations.
We're finding places.
We're finding places and letting you know what you could do there if you happen to find yourself there. Eventually, there are some stories we aren't going to cover yet because we do want to go there first before we cover it. But right now, we don't have the time or the money to actually physically go to these places. Like last week when we went to Romania, yeah, we can't just buy a plane ticket and go to these places. We'd be going to a different place every week. And
Yeah.
although that sounds like a luxury lifestyle, it's not doable right now. All right, so back to this. So giggling and sightings of him running up the stairs or staring out an upstairs window were also reported. Jean then eventually... So they keep him this whole time, so there's an issue with this doll, but they keep it, whatever. So Jean eventually moved out of his parents' house to go study in New York and Paris, and he met his wife, Anne. Years and years later, I don't have dates, after Jean's parents died, Jean moved back into his childhood home with his wife, Anne, and Jean thought the doll stayed there, and so he was still there. So Jean thought, the doll needed his room of his own. That's
Jean sounds crazy.
Because that's normal. So he got a room with a view. Upstairs room that had a window overlooking the street. And I would not want to be their neighbor. That would be the worst neighbor ever. So Robert did make Anne very uneasy. So she asked that he be locked in the attic where he could not harm anyone. Or so she thought. No. I don't think he harmed anyone. And Jean was okay with that. And we all know in scary movies what happens when you try to lock something scary away. It doesn't work. So guess who wasn't happy with this transition? So
Robert.
Ding, ding, ding. Anytime there were visitors, they would hear footsteps and pacing from the attic, and they'd hear devilish giggles. I would visit once and be done. Children outside reported seeing the doll in the window. So when they are reporting seeing him, they're seeing him in the upstairs bedroom window, not the attic. He's locked in the attic.
But then
Kids are reporting seeing him in the bedroom, and the children are saying he's watching them, and sometimes even mocking them through the window. So Jean heard this and didn't think that was possible because obviously he's locked in the attic. So he went and checked, and guess who was in a rocking chair? Hate a rocking chair.
We can't have a rocking chair.
No, that's also
if it ever rocks on its own.
It's also never allowed at our household. Sitting on a rocking chair by the window in the upstairs bedroom. So Jean was obviously shocked, but he was shocked. I was not. I mean, you lock something in the attic that doesn't want to be locked up there, it's going to get out, even if it's a fake doll. So Jean would lock the doll in the attic over and over again, and every time the doll managed to get back into that rocking chair in the bedroom. Fast forward so many years, Jean died in 1974, and along with it, Robert didn't. Just said he didn't die. Still kicking it. A new family moved into the house, and a 10-year-old girl found the doll and was delighted. Oh, and it states that she found him in the attic, which I was surprised about because he did like being in the attic. So I made a note. I'm like, well, maybe he didn't want to scare her right away.
When people buy houses, wouldn't they clean out, or wouldn't the old people clean out the house?
They died.
I know, but wouldn't
when someone, somebody? I don't know. Remember that Geico commercial where they go in the attic and there's all the creepy mannequins? So the delightment faded fast from this 10-year-old girl because she claimed that Robert was alive and wanted to hurt her. She would often wake up in the middle of the night screaming in fear. She would tell her parents that Robert had moved about in her room. And guess what? They didn't do.
Get rid of Robert.
They sure didn't. This doll just stays. As much as people like to make a scary story of it, they don't get rid of it. So it was weird because in one article they said it was not long before they gave the doll away, and now it can be found at the East Martello Fort in Key West, Florida. But another article stated that the family kept the doll for 20 years before donating it to the museum. So even after hearing the footsteps, giggles, and anything else off-putting, they did keep it for the 20 years. So one article made it sound like they were smart and got rid of it right away. Another one...
20 years is a long time to keep something creepy.
I know, but people just get attached to these things. I don't know. So he has been at the museum since 1994. The house where Jean lived and where Robert lived, it's called the Artist's House. I believe there's a family that lives there now. I don't think it's turned into anything special. It was built in the late 1890s, and the address was 534 Eaton Street, which I believe that was St. Augustine because the museum's in Key West, Florida, so I think the actual house is St. Augustine. So the question is, why was this doll possessed? If it was possessed at all, there's some people who say it's not, which, I mean, I'm willing to believe either. It's just kind of fun to hear all of the stories about it.
So the stories where people think it's not possessed, are they thinking they're just faking? Some people think, Robert did it.
Some people think it's faking. Someone said, which it had to make me laugh, because someone said something about because I'm going to get into visiting him and respecting him. Some people say if you did something wrong and in your head you know it was wrong and then bad things follow, you had that in your head all along and you drew these things out to yourself. Like if you mocked Robert, you went home and your cat died. That's really morbid. I'm so sorry. I don't know. That was the first thing that came to my head.
Like karma?
yeah, someone would say, oh my gosh, it was because I mocked Robert. The other person would be like, no, it's just obviously bad timing and maybe you were drawing this bad energy to yourself. Or are you drawing the bad energy from a doll? I don't know. Some say that it was the servant's doing that possessed the doll. They said she practiced voodoo and black magic, and due to her being mistreated by her bosses, so Jean's parents, she cursed the doll and gave it to them. And then in Wikipedia, which we all know is very reliable. You know, it is a lot more reliable. When we were in middle school, though, in high school, it was not.
Was it a thing when we were in middle school? High school, I know.
I just know you could not cite it. It was not allowed.
Yeah, I remember that.
So you were never allowed to get info from there. But now it's very updated and nice. Wikipedia states that the doll was... Oh, so this is the different one. If it wasn't possessed, Wikipedia says the doll was a birthday gift to Jean from his grandfather, who bought it from the Steiff Company while on a trip to Germany. And I looked into that. It does actually seem like it was created by the Steiff Company in Germany. That checks out. And then they think he was originally created not as a toy, but part of a set of dolls for a window display of clowns or jesters. So from that picture I showed you, and I'll put a post on our socials to show it, like he has that weird thing around his neck that a clown would wear, so it kind of makes sense. Like so he was like he was supposed to be a display doll. Then other legends, sorry if I know this goes out of order a little bit. So I think this was on Wikipedia as well. They kind of covered a couple of the legends, so I copied this out of there. They said, according to legends, the doll has supernatural abilities that allow it to move, change its facial expressions, and make giggling sounds. Some versions of the legend claim that a young girl of Bahamian descent gave Otto the doll, so Otto, that's Jean's last name is Otto. Okay. The doll as a gift or as retaliation for a wrongdoing. Other stories claim that the doll moved voodoo figurines around the room and was aware of what went on around him. Still, other legends claim that the doll vanished after Otto's house changed ownership a number of times after his death, or that young Otto triggered the doll's supernatural powers by blaming his childhood mishaps on the doll. So that one's just stating that Jean blamed the doll so many times that he finally forced an entity onto it. Like, that's how I would read it. Because we're firm believers that if you invite enough bad energy into your house, we respect everyone's beliefs. Our belief is that if you do enough bad stuff to like try to invite some evil spirit in, you very well could invite something into your life. And so doing these podcasts creeps me out a little bit, but I mean, we have a lot of positive energy too. So according to local folklore, the doll has caused car accidents, broken bones, job loss, divorce, and a cornucopia of other misfortunes, and museum visitors supposedly experience post-visit misfortunes for failing to respect Robert. So just like Annabelle, because I know that's stories about her, is if you disrespect her, there's misfortunes to follow. But, you know, just happenstance on that. One of the articles, it made me laugh. They're like, wouldn't you think the haunting would stop after Jean died and the owners? Well, no, because in the folklore of it all, it's stating that the doll was possessed. I mean, it was possessed to haunt that family, I guess. So I guess they were thinking maybe once the family died, the doll has done its job. But I'm pretty sure once you try to possess a doll, it's probably going to just stick.
And I feel like, too, it only would have stopped if he was faking it. Robert did it. Like,
yeah.
Blaming. I just want to keep saying that. Robert did it.
God, that's terrible. I can just see us finding something in the house and starting to, like...
Robert did it.
Blame it all. So, Robert the doll continues to be a nightmare at the museum he's currently at, and he actually sits in a glass case. And he has his own caretaker. It's very weird. And that's another reason people don't like it, is because these people are just making money off of Robert because they accept donations to him. However, they don't eat the candy because a crazed fan might send poison
donations
to candy.
To him?
To Robert. So I'll get into that a little bit. First, some of the things that happen when you go to the museum. When people try to take photos, their cameras become inoperable, but then they work once they leave. This isn't everybody, but it's a good majority, they say. Staff members state that his facial expressions changed, and they also hear demonic giggling and have seen him put his hands to the glass. Isn't a museum, like, well surveillanced at this point in time?
Like, do they have any, like, camera footage of this?
Like, that's another way to debunk this is... I'm pretty sure a nice museum, especially one this well-known because they have this doll that has so many articles on it, you'd think they'd have some video coverage of it. And then, guess who owned him for a brief amount of time?
Who?
Zach Bagans. So that was short-lived, but there was something in the Travel Channel in Las Vegas, and so Bagans Museum got to have the doll for a little bit. I just want to throw that out there. We will probably make fun of this guy too much as we do our podcast because he is hilarious and ridiculous all at once. But I had to put that in there, that Zach the Sack, courtesy of my sister and brother-in-law from a tour they did. Someone
I think
called
that was
him,
at Gettysburg.
Yeah, they were in Gettysburg, and their tour guide called him Zach the Sack, and it kind of stuck. I like it. All right, so here's some ridiculousness. People write him letters, sometimes apologizing, because if you disrespect him, misfortune will follow, they say. So some people send him an apology letter. Some people ask for advice. And some people ask him to hex others who have wronged them. And so his caregiver will actually respond to some of the advice ones. I think she said I think it's a she, if they say, if something's like really wrong and you can tell this person's at a low point, I think they'll respond to just really try to help that person. But the caretaker of Robert that gets all the letters. So they also send him candy, and then it was said that sometimes they send him joints. I'm like, that's great.
I feel like a doll shouldn't smoke.
So Robert's caretaker, their name is Convertito, so I'm just gonna call them they because I don't know how they identify. And so once a year they administer a checkup, taking him out of the case and weighing him to assess whether the humid Florida weather has adversely affected his straw-filled body. They are also his proxy, receiving and reading all his emails and letters and running his social media feeds. They also respond to some of the letters, like I stated. It's a lot of work.
You know how you're talking about their fans and stuff? So, and we're talking about Robert moving or something. So I looked it up, and there's a video on YouTube. Robert the doll caught moving on camera, and it looks like his foot might move a little bit. But the video is not great. But the thing is the comments on here. Number one comment, I apologize to Robert for watching without permission. Next one, I truly apologize for watching this footage without your permission, Robert. I hope you have a great day, blah, blah. I'm sorry, Robert, for watching. I just became curious about your story.
So everyone's apologizing for watching the video you just watched?
I'm sorry for watching without permission, Robert. Someone writes, the Lord is our Savior, God protect us. Sorry, Robert. Bye, Robert. Like, oh my, like...
Wow. Can I see this video?
Yeah, it's not great.
We're pausing for one brief moment. We're back. After further review, that is a terrible video. You can kind of see something, but the camera footage is so bad that it probably was the camera itself.
Yeah, like it could be, I don't know, it could be real.
It could be. It's bad footage, but I mean, when you I'm sure they were just videotaping on a phone, and how old is it?
2021.
Oh, well, it's not old, so the person it just wasn't the greatest recording. So there are several movies about Robert that are out currently. The first one is called Robert, and then it said there's 4 sequels that follow. I don't know if I can bring myself to find it. A little fun fact about me is I refuse to watch doll movies and dinosaur movies, but mostly doll movies. We did get me to watch The Boy.
Yeah, this reminded me of it.
But that one wasn't too hard to... I kind of successfully watched it. But I don't think I could bring myself to watch the Robert movies. And with that, I'm wondering if I had anything else to add. Just pretty much, some people say, there's that long history of him living at that house with Jean. I don't know who decided to make that whole story. And then there's the story of it being a gift from his grandfather.
Either way, it's creepy.
So, I mean, it could still have been hexed. Or it could have still become haunted. But either way, it got its story, and that is the story of the creepy Robert the doll.
Well, thanks. Thanks for sharing that.
This is why we'll never have dolls in the house.
I don't want to visit either if there's any, stuff behind it.
See, I would do, if we found ourselves in Florida, I would like to do that tour I sent you.
Mm-hmm. And I'm going to talk about that.
Oh, yeah, the tour you're going to talk about, because you'll get to see him briefly, and that's all I need. And I don't care what anyone else thinks. I'm not going to ask permission. I'm not going to take a photo of him. But I still would not disrespect this doll because there's the unknown. And I don't want to invite anything. I don't want to invite bad energy in the first place. So I just want to see it and go on my merry way. All right. Take us to Key West or St. Augustine, Florida. Is it in the same area?
I don't know.
It mentioned both addresses, so.
Well, so this is the one you sent me, and I looked into the details, and it looks like it's the #1 rated tour. I looked at TripAdvisor for other tours too, and there's a lot of highly rated ones. I could go into those a little bit, but I'm going to talk about this one because I did the most research on it.
Okay.
And it sounds like it's the highest rated. It's very simply named the Key West Ghost Tours, which I really like that it's straightforward. You know where it's at, you know what it's about. Mm-hmm. They describe it as experience the strange, macabre, and unusual side of Key West at night. There's some during the day too.
That sounds boring.
I'll get into it. So it's voted the top 10 best ghost tour by USA Today Reader's Choice. We see some of Key West's most haunted sites, pass by some of the most tragic and most sacred sites of the island. Your voyage includes a stop at the Key West Shipwreck Treasure Museum. So that sounds fun. I think that's part of the day
Oh, okay.
one, but I could be wrong. So looking at it, they have 3 different tours. They have the Ghosts and Gravestones tour. That's the night tour. They have the trolley tours. I believe that is the day tour. And then they have the day-night package, which includes both. And they say that's the best value. You get to see everything.
Oh, we do both.
Yep, so the Old Town Trolley Tours. This one, they says you go look at fun, exciting things to do and see. You go to the southernmost point to the quaint streets of Old Town. The tour takes you to all the major areas and attractions. See Key West's first tourist attraction, the Key West Aquarium. And I think that'd be cool.
I'd like to go to a big aquarium.
It says it was also the world's first open-air aquarium. Cross the street and you'll find yourself back in the 1800s at the Key West Shipwreck Treasure Museum, learning about how Key West became one of the richest cities in the U.S. The oldest house museum is also nearby. It's one of many beautifully restored homes.
Did it say how old it was?
No. I'm going to assume if they're talking about the 1800s, it's probably from the 1800s. Stop at the Ernest Hemingway House Museum, where he is rumored to have written A Farewell to Arms. And don't forget to look for the 6 or 7-toed cats. You had me with cats. I'll go look for cats.
Oh my gosh, what do they call them? Polly something?
I don't remember. But
I know it's Polly because it has many.
When we go on vacation and...
Oh my god, yeah. We're always thrilled when the cats or dogs find us. There's a picture of me in Ireland. Or no, it's a picture of my friend, like, greeting a cat. Like, we got off the train, and within 5 minutes, we found a cat, and it was the best thing.
And we did our honeymoon in Jamaica. We were feeding the cats.
Always. Oh my gosh, we were terrible. No one yelled at us. We tried to be sneaky about it at first, but then we were just feeding them out of our hand. We're like, oh, love us.
Marvel at the beautiful species of butterflies.
No. I went into a butterfly exhibit once, and I was not... Ugh.
I'm just picturing the cats getting the butterflies.
Oh.
All right, but that's in the Key West Butterfly and Nature Conservatory, and wander next door to the southernmost house mansion and museum, known for its 19th century architecture and tropical gardens. Cool off with a drink at the famous Sloppy Joe's Bar or Jimmy Buffett's Margaritaville in the Old Town area. Don't leave Key West until you've watched the sunset from Mallory Square, a truly memorable experience.
That'd be pretty.
It says, then there is the Ghosts and Gravestones tour. Now this one sounds more interesting.
That's the spooky one, right?
Yeah. You will pass by some of the most tragic, most sacred sites. I already mentioned it earlier. It says, including the Grotto of Our Lady of Lourdes, which protects the city from hurricanes, and even Captain Tony's Saloon. You probably think it was only a bar, but is it? He goes, yes it is. No, I'm just kidding. Even the majestic St. Paul's Church, founded by Key West's finest families, has secrets. Your voyage includes a stop at the Key West Shipwreck Treasure Museum, which it sounds like you do that during the day one too.
Yeah, I'm sure you hit some of the same spots.
Yeah, and it says it's filled with tales of those who have haunted its dark past. As you journey upstairs, you'll discover Daddy Longlegs and the cursed silver bar from an ill-fated shipwreck in 1656. Then, equipped with a ghost meter, you are then on your own to discover what else lurks inside. It says, we run on dark and stormy nights. Comfortable shoes are recommended so that you don't become dead on your feet during the walking portion. Space is limited for this exclusive tour. It says, may not be suitable for children under 13. Due to loud noises on the tour, children under the age of 6 are not allowed on board. And then I saw...
It's probably smart, because I'd probably be swearing up this whole time.
And then also with them, it looks like... I don't know where they stopped to see Robert the Doll, but they have...
I thought in the description it said something about seeing a doll. However, when I looked up Robert the Doll, that's how I got the link, was off of it.
It looks like that's part of the Ghosts and Gravestones tour, which I feel like they would have mentioned that in their description, because he seems more famous then.
One of the descriptions said the word doll in it.
Oh, okay.
I don't know which one, though.
And then, like I said, they have a third tour. They also have a conch tour train. It says, the conch tour train has treated guests to a close-up view of the southernmost city's most popular places, including Mallory Square, Little White House, Overseas Railroad Museum, the aquarium, and more. So it looks like it's kind of like it's a trolley. It's a tour guide. They drive you around.
Okay.
The others look like they're walking, except the trolley one looks fun. Like, these look like they're all... You get to go on a trolley. It's fun.
I was going to say, that sounds like fun. For an area where we don't have that. I mean,
yeah.
You could go to Door County and ride a trolley, I suppose, but...
And then they have a day-night package, which includes both tours.
Nice.
And then looking at them, I like to look at what people say about the tours, like reviews and stuff.
Yeah, like how I didn't have like anything to say from the tours from the last episode, but that's because not many people make it to Romania.
Mm-hmm. And I always look at the reviews. There's 228 reviews. They average 228 reviews.
Oh, thanks.
They average 4 out of 5 stars. It's kind of nice if you go on TripAdvisor. It tells you where you start, finish, and all this stuff. People are saying, super fun. I've gone on this tour twice. Howard, our driver, rocks. And they talk about history.
Howard.
I didn't read a lot of details about if they saw spooky things at all.
But the purpose of it was, it looks like a lot of people liked it.
Yeah, a lot of people like it. Some people like overpriced, disappointing. Very underwhelming experience, especially consider the website raved about 100% satisfaction rate. But then no matter what, you'll always find somebody complaining. And
you can't satisfy everybody. It's
like this
impossible.
Person, fun and creepy. Interesting history. Someone called this one Mr. Whiskey. If you go on the tour, ask for Mr. Whiskey. Great tour guide.
But I want Howard. I feel like he was just the best driver, they said, though.
Very entertaining, loved it. So most people thought it was a great tour. There's, like I said, there's other tours. I just looked up ghost tours in Key West. Number 1 is the one we talked about. Then there's the
You talked about several.
Well, that was the same company, Key West Ghost Tours.
Okay.
Then the Dark Side of Key West Ghost Tour. That one, even though it's ranked number 2, it's actually rated higher. Key West Haunted Pub Crawl and Ghost Tour. That sounds like it could be fun.
There we go. That's my jam.
Like, there's a lot of different... Oh, there's the Robert the Doll Experience VIP Ghost Tour at Fort East Mortello.
I like the fact that the one gives you the meters and stuff. I would definitely need a drink before we did anything like this, though.
Mm-hmm.
Need a little liquid encouragement.
The original Key West Ghost Hunt, the Ghost of Key West Walking Tour, another Key West Haunted Pub Crawl Walking Tour. So there's
plenty to do
there. Especially because it's an old place, so there's history.
So if you guys find yourself in Key West, Florida, get yourself a tour. Whether it's a daytime tour or a nighttime tour, they have plenty to offer.
And then, like, I try looking up stuff where we're going to find stuff to do, too. Like, if we go somewhere, we're not just going to do that one tour.
Mm-hmm.
So, obviously, Key West, popular things to do. Sailing, boat tours, looking on the historic sites, snorkeling, fishing charters. And then you can go into every one of those categories.
Nice. Those would be fun, too.
Mm-hmm. I go to the beach.
Because a ghost tour is not for everybody. However, if you're listening to this podcast, most likely you would like to go on a ghost tour. But
like the Dry Tortugas National Park. It's a fort, and it looks awesome. Like, I would like to go to
I would like to do that.
I almost feel like they had a ghost
adventure.
adventure.
I'd go snorkeling.
I feel like is that where they went on Ghost Adventures?
Maybe.
In Florida, there's this fort down there.
I don't know.
It kind of looks like one
it's
they went
possible.
to. They have a
We're
lot
only
of
on season
episodes.
2, so we're 20-something seasons behind right now.
So the more I look at, the more I want to put this high up on our list of places to travel.
Our non-existent bucket list.
Well, let's write them down.
I know.
So then we remember.
Anything else to add?
No, that's
well,
it.
I have to add. I did a little look up. I apologize. I have no idea why I mentioned St. Augustine. Not close to Key West. People who have been listening to this have been dying throughout the whole episode. They're not next to each other, not even close. And I looked up the house and everything and the museum. I think they're both in Key West. So I don't know where the St. Augustine came from. Correct me if I'm wrong. As far as it looks, everything is in Key West.
Oh,
so
okay.
the East Martello Museum called it something else at the beginning, but it's the East Martello Museum in Key West, Florida. All right. Our podcast comes out every Tuesday morning. Social media, you guys can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Creepy Travels. As far as YouTube, we don't have any videos, but if you're at work and you can't use Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anything like that, usually you can get into YouTube. So you can listen to us there and give us a follow, please. You can also email us at creepytravelspodcast@gmail.com. If you have any spooky stories, please share those with us, and we will share it on our monthly listener stories, which we're now calling Creep Us Out. Don't forget to include photos or videos if you have them. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll talk to y'all next week.